Hello, and welcome to Safety Unfiltered. This podcast is brought to you by Velocity View, creators of the Safety Assist mobile application. We provide tools to help companies improve worksite safety and OSHA compliance. In today's episode, Pat Walsh and I are going to be continuing our conversations about worksite safety and specifically leading indicators and how they can impact your workers and your business. If you were to have like an elevator conversation with someone about what you should do, what would be your first thoughts on how to advise them?
The responsibility of any employer, whether it's a sub or a GC, is to make sure that the people involved in that work task are fully trained and qualified before you entrust them to do it. And the way to do that is to ensure that a qualified trainer or a supervisor reviews all of the necessary regulatory requirements and then verify that against the people who are assigned to do that work.
And that protects the workers, making sure they have all of their required equipment, and also it protects the company from liability. I'm also curious about your feelings on leading indicators and how to handle those specific things in general.
So the leading indicator is designed as a prevention measure where you see risks in advance and you do the deliberate things to prevent the injury in the first place and never allow it to occur at all.
Overall, if you don't have a digital-based solution in place, a mobile application like Safety Assist, what would be your first recommendations?
I think the old adage that applies here is that knowledge is power. So the senior supervisors, the site supervisors, and the craft workers at all different echelons of a project all have that same fundamental need for correct and comprehensive information. Otherwise, every day is just a roll of the dice, whether something bad's going to happen or the job is going to get shut down for some unforeseen problem. And the shame is that most of the problems that occur on job sites these days, they can be foreseen. You actually can look ahead and see it coming beforehand if you're looking in the right place. And the lack of knowledge or the lack of comprehensive look at the safety rules that apply, that's where most of these issues have their beginnings. That's the root of the problem.
Would you say it's a problem with complacency?
Complacency is one way to approach it, yes. The analogy I like to make it is that there's this 2-inch thick book sitting over there on the bookshelf. Everything in that book is important.
Right.
But your job starts tomorrow morning. How much time are you going to spend looking through that 2-inch book to try to find all the necessary information?
Especially if you are used to working in a certain way and we got away with it 10 times, but that 11th time is going to hit you. To give color to this, I was working for a environmental safety company directly after I got out of the Air Force. And basically we were tasked to go clean up oil spills, and I would have to get into my PPE and be inverted in confined spaces and suck out bilge tanks, all the waste and the gray water. And so I would have to do that. And I got hurt twice on the job, mainly because there wasn't anything even approaching a safety or a tool talk or a checklist to make sure that all of the required equipment was on site. And also just complacency. So I ended up, scratching my retina and almost suffocating in a 20,000 gallon underground tank with JP4 in it because these basic standards weren't followed. And if there's no documentation that these safety standards were followed, you're over the barrel for that. And the difference between now and then is that we didn't have the ability to do it as quickly and as easily as Safety Assist makes it for the user. It's literally safety in the palm of your hand. We are a tool to give companies the ability to protect their workers and protect themselves from liability. I'd like to hear from you. How do you get people to understand the need for that kind of immediate documentation and access?
In a very real sense, all of these safety rules and regulations are written in the blood of the people who had to get hurt or killed for that rule to be in there in the first place.
Me being one of them. So yeah.
Exactly. And there's any number of examples of somebody that got injured or worse because the supervisor didn't know any better, or the men involved didn't know any better, or they were poorly trained or otherwise ill equipped to put themselves in that risk situation. So I would remind the listener that knowledge is power. Having the knowledge of those rules that were written in the blood of somebody who had to get hurt or killed for that rule to be in existence, that rule then becomes your leading indicator to help the current group of people approach that task with full knowledge of what those rules are and what the precautions need to be in order for those people to do that task successfully.
Thank you again for listening to Safety Unfiltered. In our coming episodes, we're going to be covering Regulation EN 385-1-1, how to handle a multi-tier safety structure, as well as having special guests from the military speaking on safety from a military perspective. If you have any thoughts or suggestions for upcoming episodes, please let us know. And also, like, subscribe, and share on all of our social media channels. And as always, be safe.